So good afternoon again, and thank you so much for joining us today. So thrilled to have you here, joining us in celebrating Black History Month here at our health center. Each year, February is dedicated as Black History Month to honor the contributions and struggles of African Americans and to raise awareness of Black history. Today, we are very excited to celebrate and learn from the life experiences of our staff panelists and health center colleagues, Ivy Ngugi, Nick Silla, and Stacy Thompson. Moments like this are important as they give us an opportunity to understand Black experiences while spotlighting Black achievement. Black History Month also provides us a fresh reminder to take stock of where systemic racism persists and gives visibility to the people creating change. The Health Center is committed to addressing racism as a public health crisis, both through action to uphold health equity and by fostering an organizational culture that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, and just. As Oris Stewart, Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer for the NBA, said at our staff recognition event last December, we are committed to creating a virtuous cycle that promotes equity and belonging within and outside of our walls. This is an example of our commitment. I am so grateful to Krista Brown, founder and executive director of the Free Soil Arts Collective, for moderating today's discussion and for the work she leads in our community. The Free Soil Arts Collective's mission is to amplify and strengthen the voices of BIPOC artists in the Merrimack Valley. Krista is also an actor, a skilled storyteller, entrepreneur, and very dear friend of our health center. Among Krista's most recent initiatives is the storytelling project Hidden in Plain Sight, Stories of Black Lowell, which chronicles the lived experiences of Black people in the city. One of our panelists, Ivy, is among those featured in this work. We're putting a link in the chat so you can learn more about this project. As we get started, please feel free to put questions and comments in the chat. We will address them at the end of the program as time permits. And now, please join me in welcoming Krista and our panelists, Ivy, Nick, and Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome, everyone. Wishing you all the blackest of Black History Months. My name is Krista Brown. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a proud Black woman, and I'm excited to be your host for today's event, The Leaders Within, a celebration of Black History Month. This is a time for us to lift up the names and voices of some of the incredible Black leaders that you have at the Lowell Community Health Center. As Susan shared, I'm the founder of the Free Soil Arts Collective, and we're an arts organization based in Lowell with a mission to amplify voices and stories of color through the arts. Most recently, with Hidden in Plain Sight, we produced an anthology of 27 Black stories, Ivy's being one of them, where we were able to spotlight the people who have lived and worked in Lowell throughout the years. We spoke with community members, historians, and learned about the Black neighborhoods in Lowell that were destroyed at the hands of displacement and gentrification. Hale Howard, which today is Gallagher Terminal and Maycom headquarters, Bishop Markham, which today is South Common Village, and Julian Steele Shaughnessy Terrace, which today is Rivers Edge Condos. Also about there being 34 unmarked sites on the Underground Railroad in Lowell. Countless stories of both destruction and resilience. I will also add that we're working with city leadership to ensure that these stories are integrated into the permanent fabric of this place, of our community. If we don't share our stories and pass them down, they die. And storytelling is vital. Speaking truth to power is vital. And that is why I'm so happy to be serving in this space to make way for some more truth-telling through our wonderful panelists. Are we ready? Yes. So first, we have Ivy Ngugi, the founder of Ivy Prints LLC and author of her first novel entitled All the Peaches and Mangoes I Would Sell for You. She's passionate about marketing campaigns, social media outreach, community planning, communication, voice acting, blogging, media representation, and the arts. Through employment at both the Lowell Community Health Center and the Center for Hope and Healing, she prides herself as being able to achieve growth as a content creator, leader, communicator, and an event and community coordinator. Ms. Gogi looks forward to actively participating in spaces that provide her the opportunity to shed light to underrepresented communities, while growing her graphic design, organization, and research skills. As a writer and entrepreneur, it is her personal mission to amplify and diversify the narrative of Blackness in the media. Ms. Gogi is the 2021 recipient of the Regional Silver Key Award issued by the School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University. Thank you for being here, Ivy. Next, I'm going to introduce your high school mate, which we just found out, Nick Ibrahim Silla. As a frontline patient service representative since September 21, Nick has quickly become a familiar and welcoming face at Lowell Community Health Center, greeting and directing patients, employees, and visitors. A graduate of Middlesex Community College, Nick has extensive experience in customer service, including as a sales clerk at the Finish Line at the Rockingham Park Mall, my favorite mall, International Hotels and Resorts in Danvers, Sam's Club, and as a bank teller for John Dark Credit Union. He says, I put that to the use at the Lowell Community Health Center by coming to work with a positive attitude and providing great service, which is something I always enjoyed doing. Mr. Silla's future career plan is to become a therapist or psychologist. An amateur boxer for 9 years, he is a foodie who enjoys exploring new restaurants and cooking. Thank you for being here, Nick. And last but not least, we have Stacy Thompson. In her current role as Health Communications Manager, Stacy supports and participates in the overall design of both internal and external health communications of the organization. Most especially, she supports the outreach programs designed to combat and educate in areas of illness and health inequities. Prior to this new role, Ms. Thompson worked hosting webinars and workshops in the area of workforce development, employment, and training for 7 years. Ms. Thompson holds a board membership to Lowell Telemedia Company and operated as communications co-lead for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consortium Lowell. Ms. Thompson also serves as a school committee member in Lowell, the first Black woman elected to this in a municipal city in the city of Lowell. Ms. Thompson's spare time is found writing plays, reading books, listening to music, and traveling. Ms. Thompson holds a bachelor's degree in sociology pre-law from Boston College and is also a certified professional resume writer, MBTI certified instructor, certified educator in personal finance, and certified diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We have a very qualified, very leadership-oriented group. All of you are leaders in your own right. And I can personally attest that it's very important to find references, models out there about the type of leader that you want to be. And maybe just as important, maybe the leader that you don't want to be. So what Black leaders have offered you inspiration, or who do you look up to and why? And we'll start with Stacy.
Threw me off there. I didn't know you were going to start with me. First of all, so excited to be here with great leaders. And I love your intro, have the blackest Black History Month ever, because I plan on doing that. But my leaders, you know, I've had a variety of leaders, and I love that you said the ones that you don't look toward as well as the ones you do. So my biggest leader is my mom. My mom was a teacher for 45 years. She taught in Billerica Public Schools, which there were no Black teachers in that school system, outside of one that left kind of early on in her career. So she really, for many of the students, was the first Black person that they met in person in life. She had to, kind of charge forward and kind of, make a path for herself. And I really looked at that as such a powerful thing. And in order to not kind of go into all the people, there's another person that I would love to mention, and her name is Birdie Bell Jones Malbury, who obviously Krista mentions in her work. But for those of you who don't know about her, in Lowell in 1979, she actually ran for city council and ran for 10 years. And did not get into the role, but more so was the terror she was put under. Her campaign office was burned down, rocks were thrown through the window, and she still persisted for 10 years. So, being the first Black woman to enter into the space of political office in Lowell, I do that on the shoulders of people like Birdie, and it's an honor to carry on her legacy in that capacity.
Thank you, Stacy. So beautiful to think about the strides we've made since Birdie. And if she were here to just see you 20 22 being the first, just amazing. Nick, what about you? Who are some Black leaders that you feel inspired by?
Mine has to be Malcolm X, which is, the only person that I really, view as a role model growing up and stuff. But because the reason why is because I feel like he stood out from everybody else. Obviously, there's a lot of great leaders, great activists and stuff like that. But to me, it has to be Malcolm X because he was kind of, I would say, like an outlaw. Like, at first he started off, you know, as like a regular young Black man in America, and then he worked his way up. He was even kicked out of his group, that the Muslim group that he was a part of, and then he's just keep it short and simple. He's that's he's my only one so far.
No, I dig it. I love Malcolm myself too. Ivy, what about you?
Growing up, I've always looked up to Beyonce because of her work ethic. As a perfectionist, like literally my whole life, it was always validating to see her in that position. That always meant like to me, like, okay, like you just keep working on you. Like hard work will always be rewarded. So her, and then as I got older, Issa Rae, I have been watching her literally since she started posting videos on YouTube. And me and her are very similar. I do think that, and her candidness about Blackness in media, her pushing herself to be at the forefront, even at her own show, and pushing just these diverse narratives of everyday Black people, a champion of something that I'm hopefully will be able to get on screen one day is Black mediocrity, and just really showing Blackness in all lights and just existing in all media spaces. So them two, for sure.
I love that. I think it's so beautiful now. I don't know about y'all, but for me, 2020 was kind of that time that I got kind of pushed out of performing in the workplace, if that makes sense. Like, thank you, Stacey. Yes. So I feel like with the pandemic and then also this hyper focus all of a sudden on these continued murders of Black people and all of this turmoil that's been happening, but because we have this super big focus, I felt like it kind of forced me to change my idea of the kind of life I wanted to lead and how I want to walk into spaces and the energy that I want to put into being authentic or not being authentic. So I don't know, for all of you, have you encountered that recently, kind of this this call to be yourself, which can also be a little bit scary? And how have you, and I'll go back to you, Ivy, when have you felt seen, like your authentic self? What does that look like?
So because of, like you said, 2020 happening and people realizing that Black people have problems and that they exist, what I've been met with personally and what I've observed is this now greater entitlement towards wholesomeness towards Black people, but especially I'm speaking as a Black woman. In the workplace and out of the workplace, you have people who just feel entitled to your personhood. There is now, I would say, a more open conversation in the workplace about bringing your whole self, whatever that means, to work, but often that means bringing emotional labor to your job. Personally, for me, with everything I do, whether I'm working for an organization or I'm working for myself, my emotions are removed from my job because that inhibits my ability to show up and do the best work, because I am tying my performance based on my heart, which is just counterproductive. So showing up as yourself, I think for me, it just means showing up and not being questioned for it. Because there have been times where I've literally been showing up as myself and been told I'm being distant or I'm not social enough. And it's like, you have to take away your preconceived idea of Blackness. For one, not every Black woman is bubbly, this. And I am a person who has my boundaries. So please respect that. And in a workplace, it's, I think, really important to be able to just to show up as yourself, to do and treat everything with kindness, not niceness, and to just approach everything from as authentic as a perspective as you can. Because even in being a Black woman, again, like I said, there's that idea of how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be nurturing this and this. So yeah.
Thank you, Ivy. Thanks for being so honest. Stacey, what about you? When have you felt just fully seen for who you are?
First of all, I have to say, Ivy, man, you were saying so much of the truth, like so many things that I just was able to pull from that. I think that, and kind of to lead up to what you were first saying about 2020, Krista, that was kind of, well, it was absolutely the I can't take it anymore year for me. I can't take it anymore, and I'm not going to. Like, I'm just not going to. So if people have an issue with that, or whatever it is they thought Stacey was, because I tell people I smile a lot, but you have no idea what's going on in my head. Okay, so understand there's a very big difference between a smile and what's happening inside someone's heart. One of the things that I did, being part of the DEI consortium, and I was the communications co-lead, I think for me, that was the first time I started to feel seen, believe it or not. And there's been lots of things I've done over the years. I've written plays, I've done that for a long time. And that was a way for my thoughts to be seen, but not me to be seen, if that makes any sense. But feeling seen was being a part of a group of people that were actually pushing forth and amplifying Black voices. What happens, unfortunately, a lot of times when you use a BIPOC term, is the Black movement, which really started a lot of these movements, gets minimized. And one of the things that I loved about being a part of the DEI consortium is that that was not taking place, because there were Black people that were making sure that that was not happening. And so I feel like that was, for me, a huge part of feeling seen. But one of the things that I did as a challenge to people was, a lot of people will, and this goes to what Ivy was speaking about, how people perceive you, especially as a Black female. I said, a lot of people say that they're allies, but quite frankly, I think like it's all lies. And that was not to say that there were no people that were allies, but if you're a true ally, then you enter spaces with intention of bringing me into them. And I think that that was not happening. So when I was allowing for other people to see that this is really who I was, and allowing myself to be truly and authentically honest, even when I ran my campaign, people were saying, oh, you shouldn't do it like this. Or, people are gonna, Stacey, you're not gonna get the win if you do X, Y, Z. This is how you have to package it. I did not align myself with anybody that I did not think was had integrity. I refused to, because I'm like, if I lose like that, then I'm fine with it. If I win and I've compromised who I am as a person, I didn't win. And so I feel like that was, for me, saying, Stacey, you're good enough. I don't care if people don't see that, you need to see it. And so for me, that was kind of my moment, or my journey.
Stacey, yes. I remember 2020, I was doing marketing for a nonprofit, and when George Floyd was murdered, there was a director of marketing, and then there was me, and she was white. And the entire executive team came to me, sat me down, and told me that I had to be the one to write the statements that go out. And I had to push back and say I wasn't comfortable for such and such reasons. And literally teams of people with power, bigger than me, smarter than me, were trying to convince me that what I felt kind of needed to be sat on for a little bit so that I could write this statement. And I remember it being, Krista, only you can write this. And I remember the vibe being like, and I see all y'all shaking your heads because we know the vibe is like, you're special. You have this unique perspective, only you. But people don't take account what it takes to be Black, the labor, the emotions, the toil. And a smile is nothing. There's so much underneath the surface. So the fact that what I gather is that most of you have found your authenticity on your own terms, and you take seats at tables that you like, is beautiful. Options is beautiful. When I think of our ancestors, they didn't have options. So now that we can say no, we can negotiate. It's beautiful. So I'm proud that you all are where you are now. So thank you for that. So we've called all of you leaders today. So that means you're leaders. I need to understand how comfortable are you in the position of being called a leader? When did you feel worthy to call yourself that term? Nick, if I can give you that one, what do you think?
I think historically, people of color and minorities have been excluded from certain opportunities. And there are currently some disorders, jobs, or what do you call it? Social perspective regarding which career or jobs people of color or minorities should have. I feel worthy to be in this position. I am worthy of more growth as the time goes because I am continuously trying to unlearn and break the stereotype of the community I belong in, because everybody deserves a fair chance.
Beautiful. What about you, Ivy? When did you feel kind of comfortable with the idea of being a leader?
I always say that names are important because they're the destiny that we're called by and that we respond to. And with leadership, it's just like confidence for me. It's like people, you're expected to not have it and build it. But I always say, like, I've had it. I've never called myself a leader. I shy away from that, not because I'm insecure in the title, but in action is how I do. So the earliest I would say is just, I've always loved volunteering. So I always kind of see that as like an initiative thing. So I would say I found my leadership in volunteering and just taking that first step.
I love that, Ivy. What about you, Stacy? Are you comfortable with the term? What do you think?
I am. I am comfortable in the term. I have been a leader since I was little. I noticed it when I was little, and much to my mother's chagrin, I'm sure, because I would take over spaces that I was in. But I think that to her credit, she didn't recognize that that's what she was birthing and in me because I saw it in her. And I think the reality of it is the title, quite frankly, means nothing to me. So to Ivy's point, I don't care that you call me a leader. It's about the work. It's not about a title because you can have a title and do nothing with it. And quite frankly, I see that a lot. So I think that it's imperative that if you notice that people are watching you, if you're able to impact change, if you're able to empower, you are a leader. So the title is nice. It might be an ego stroking thing, but quite frankly, it's for me about the work. And that's why even, entering this role, I will say from my last job to this job is starkly different. I was doing a lot of work that would have had justification of a certain salary, but was not receiving that. And what I noticed here is, feeling for the first time, the measure of what I was doing was actually being looked at in a very real way, a real visceral way. And for me, that was important because I said to myself, why are you giving your talents away and not really, seeking that compensation? Like, you need to demand what you're worth, basically. And the funny thing is, that's what I was teaching people. I was a workforce developer teaching people to do that, not doing that for myself. And I think oftentimes we advocate for others all the time and not for ourselves. So again, for me, that's really about what leadership, when I walked into that.
Beautiful. I'm like making so many sound effects over here. It's not even funny. I'm like, So with leadership, for people who, when we just simplify that, what do you think are the ways that people can be leaders? There might be folks out there who are younger or, hey, older, and they want to do more and they want to contribute, but they don't know how. So Stacy, I feel like you've done this in a very tangible way. What are the steps you take when you want to lead?
Stop talking about it. I think that's the easiest, just don't talk about it anymore. People talk and talk. I'm one of those people that hates meetings upon meetings that get nothing done. I'm fine with going to a meeting. I'm fine when there's a plan and there's execution and all that. But like, just stop talking about it. Get out and do something. It doesn't have to be, again, the school committee member or city council. It doesn't have to be the head or the CEO of Free Soil. It's about like literally saying, this is where I want to make an impact. It could be maybe you're the person that notices you have a neighbor that is elderly and can't shovel their, their property, and you make a pledge that that's what you're going to do. You're showing, you're exhibiting leadership. So for me, it's just stopping talking and actually actualizing the work. That's for me the most important thing.
I love it. Melody Hobson, Black woman out of Chicago, who's the head of Aerial Investments, says, we have admired the problem long enough. And people will come to her all the time with complaints and issues, and valid issues, of course, valid concerns. But after a while, it's like, we've looked at this thing, we know all the angles, what are we going to do? And I think that that little window of space between mulling over the problem and taking the action is where we get hung up the most. And you running for school committee, me starting Free Soil, for me, it was that hump of talking and talking and talking, and then just doing it. And that's what took me like 2 years. So yeah. Ivy, what about you? What are the steps you can take to be a leader?
I fully agree with Stacy. I've always said that repentance is action-based. And repentance, I know it has like a biblical weight, but repentance just means to recognize ways of your past, acknowledge them, so that self-awareness, and then do something about it. I always say, like, these days, I'm happy that more people are growing more self-aware and realizing that their actions are deep-rooted and they affect others. The self-awareness, I always say, is 1% of the issue. The other 99 is the action that you've both spoken to beautifully. Just don't talk about it, do it. Just what Stacy said. Like, I also think that you expend a lot of energy talking about it. And by doing so, you're inviting negative voices. You're inviting ill intentions that people may carry with their disbelief, and that will come back to you. So I would really just say, as hard as it is, start with yourself. I know that scientifically speaking, most people don't have an inner monologue with themselves, but saying things out loud, like, talk to yourself and stand firm in what you know to be true, because if it's one thing that is unshakable and that will be here until you're gone, is you.
Love it. Nick, what about you? What are some ways that you're a leader, that you lead?
First of all, I have to agree with Stacy. Like, you have to be about it, not just say it, be about it, because she's in fact right. Actions do speak louder than words. But I consistently ensure that I'm leading by example, specifically within the community I belong in. I try to ensure we are making ourselves accountable for some of our current misleading social construct, and try to look for solutions while educating and learning things that have been taught to our community for decades.
Beautiful. So we all about that action. Great. Wonderful. So this is our last question before opening it up to others. But as we know, this is Black History Month, and Black history is American history. It is global history. And most folks may not know, Carter Woodson, a Black man in 1926, set out to designate a time to promote and educate people about Black history and culture. Originally, it was set out to be a week, and now it has grown to a month, the shortest month, but a month nonetheless. What do you think is the importance of Black History Month today? And I will pass it back to you, Nick.
The importance of Black History Month to me is everything everything Black and African culture based. Specifically cultures. Specifically cultures, including all the great activists and everything they've done and fought for and stood for. They pretty much paved the way for us to have, what we have today, and for the next generation, making sure like everything they've fought for in the past, for years and years and decades is all worth it, because, here we are today, here we have this freedom that we have today, here we're able to, vote, do these things that we weren't, allowed to do back then, so it's everything culture-wise, everything culture-based, everything culture-wise.
The culture, yes. Stacy, what about you? What do you think is the importance of this month?
I agree with a lot of what Nick just said. There's so much that's important about this month. I think the biggest thing is we're here. Like, Black people are here. We've been here. We got ripped from, the womb of civilization, and, we're placed in this country. And well, for many people, that was the experience. And um, we not just survived, we thrived. And there's so many areas and so many spaces that we have contributed to. We are the fabric. And I would intention that. And I think that it's important to recognize all the places and spaces. So, if you stop at a stoplight, Black person did that. The heart pumping machine, again, Black person. Filament that went in the light bulb that we never got credit for, Black person did that. So there's so many areas of success and invention and ingenuity that we have, that it's just a beautiful thing to be able to celebrate and to have time. And I laughed that you said the shortest month, because yeah, they gave us the shortest month. We got a month, but like I said, it's Black History Day, week, month, year, and lifetime is really what it is. So that's my
Yes,
take.
yes. Ivy, what do you think is the importance of Black History Month?
Well, thank you, Stacey, for using the word ingenuity, because when you said that, ingenuity is survival, and Black American people have survived in this country off of their ability to see into a future. And I learned this year, but Black History Month every year has a theme. I didn't know this, and I'm sharing it with all of you. This year's theme is Black wellness and healthcare. And I think that's really appropriate, especially because we're in a pandemic. But it's important for me because part of wellness is the ability to be treated like all around. And Black History Month is not just about amplifying Black trauma. It's not. It's, I think, the only time in year, sadly, that non-Black people and big corporations acknowledge Blackness in its other full forms of light. So Black History Month to me serves as a door in a hallway. It's kind of like this open, but as time goes by, it'll get bigger and bigger with how we add to it. So I think it's important because it creates a better future where we can be seen fully.
Well said, Ivy. Adore. I love it. Thank you all so much. We have a question in the chat. It says ERIND, so my apologies, I can't read the name fully, but it says, how can allies help move forward a more diverse leadership team? What can we do? So that is, how can allies help move forward a more diverse leadership team? Would anyone like to comment on that?
I would say by looking at your leadership team and organization as is it diverse? If it's not, then your leadership team won't be diverse to reflect that. And what you can do in that instance, if your organization and leadership team are not diverse, is invite external help. One of the best listening skills is being quiet, and you learn a lot by being quiet as a quiet person who talks a lot. Giving space to an external perspective to tell you how you could be better, and also not even also, the biggest thing I would say is nothing is personal. Nothing in this work, when you are dealing with Black people and BIPOC people and marginalized identities, is personal. It will feel like an attack on you as a person because that is who you represent on the outside. However, it is for what you stand for. If you are truly about bettering the lives of marginalized populations that you serve or that you work with, you'll give them the platform to do so and see them in the words that they're saying as lived experience and as fact, not an emotion of a testament of your emotional labor or them trying to get at you, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Ivy. Anyone else want to comment on that? Then I will pass it on.
I just have one quick thing. Two things that you can do really, really easily. One, do anti-racism training. So because it's not about just diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's about being anti-racist. So I think if you can, do that work, that'd be great. And then the other thing is to potentially, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think, and that's kind of what Ivy was talking about. There's a measure of you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you're not willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, then nothing moves forward.
We have a question from Basilio Lopez. Are there ways that leaders today can help showcase or highlight Black history and achievement beyond February? Any ways that leaders can help showcase or highlight Black history and achievement beyond February?
Let Nick take this one.
This is a great question. It makes me think of this the quote that Malcolm X also said, which is you're not to be so blind by patriotism that you can't face reality, because wrong is wrong, and no matter who does it or says it. So it kind of falls into the perspective of, no matter, I don't really know how to really like put it into words, but it's one of those things where it's within the moment you would know. So how do I I don't really know how to put it into words, to be honest, because yeah, I was hoping to answer the first question, to be honest. Now I was ready to answer the first question.
Feel free, you have the space. You have the space. Go ahead and answer that first question.
Yeah, because the first question is all about like change. We all got to start somewhere, and diversity, and everywhere. Look at your workplace. For example, like Lowell Community Health Center, we're very diverse. We're very open about a lot of things. We have great programs. And such as, for example, like what we're doing right now. This is great to get your opinions out and to really hear, what each and everyone has to like say of what we've learned and such.
Very good, Nick. And I also think with, if you don't see Black history, Black life now being highlighted, like Rihanna says, pull up, say something, talk about why certain stories aren't being included. Or maybe it's something as simple as, can we have some more Black-owned businesses in our space? Can we have, catering from this Black-owned restaurant this month? Or little things like that make a huge difference. Oh, and Nick, we have a follow-up to your question about Black men in public health. How can we improve diversity and inclusiveness of Black men in public health? Do you have any thoughts on that, Nick?
Yes, I'll say more colored nurses, and like specific like men, because what I noticed is when I first started working here, I'm the only man in my whole department. I'm the only man in my yes. Find it hard to believe I am the only man in my whole department. The only man in my whole department until we recently got a new man in my department. But I just wish that more Black men will break, like I said before, break the stereotype and then like really push through it. I know it's hard. It's always gonna be hard at first, but we all got to start somewhere, and putting our peers onto jobs like like healthcare, just be open about it. If you know anybody that you feel like, oh, for example, like what I do, patient service representative. Anybody that's great with talking to people, helping people, anybody that loves helping patients, especially minorities, because that's what we do here. Because you have to put yourself in their shoes and then see, because they come here and start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And I've seen a lot of patients who come here from Brazil, either it could be Guatemala, different countries, and looking for health insurance. And the first thing they always tell me is, I just arrived here yesterday. you know, I just arrived there yesterday, and then they're pushing themselves, you know, no time being wasted. They're pushing themselves to, you know, find health insurance, jobs, and etc. You know, so we all got to start somewhere. It's hard at first, but, you know, you got to lead the way.
So Nick's going to keep spreading the word. We have another question from Catherine Tager that says, are the power structures themselves a barrier to more representative leadership within organizations? So are power structures themselves a barrier to us having more diverse leadership within organizations?
Absolutely. I think that, well, first of all, if you look at racism in general, it's institutional. So there are so many facets to it that we can't get into. That's not something that can fit in this space. But the reality of it is, yes, I mean, there's a quote that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the reason why that's a really famous quote is because people hold on to their power by any means necessary, which was a Malcolm X quote for Nick, my friend over there. But you know, I think that it's really important to understand that are you, and I think Krista might have mentioned this, and I believe Ivy mentioned this, is you have to give space or lean space for people. Are you doing that, or are you more concerned with holding on to your power? And for a lot of people, that's a hard question to ask.
And to add on to what Stacy said, but to also answer Basilio's question, Black Lives Matter is a statement that we have all become familiar with in the last 2 years. Support Black life while it's here. That is how Black life can matter. You can combat the poverty and the systematic things that come with being Black in this country by supporting Black livelihood. And to do just so, the reason I went off camera is to bring off the Black books that I have on my shelf. These ones are by Massachusetts authors. This is my book, All the Peaches and Mangoes I Would Sell for You. This is I Am Not Allowed to Explain by Gladys Wangeshi, who is a Kenyan poet from Lawrence. This is Krista's own Hidden in Plain, you can't see it, Hidden in Plain Sight. This is Brutal Imaginations by Cornelius Beatty, and this is Thaddeus Miles's To My Kin. And this is also a history book about the Black West. C, you can support Black livelihood by educating yourself. Google is free. A library card is free. Supporting Black livelihood and allowing yourself to see Blackness in all forms of light that do not involve trauma, and freeing yourself from the perspective that Black people have to struggle to come up. No, 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 no. You can support Black livelihood while it's here by treating them like everyone else also, because that's a privilege that Black people are not given often. Often our political identity comes before that, but we are people. And people have feelings, people have jobs, people write, people cry, people say things. So you can support Black people while they're here by giving them your money, donating, and giving space.
And Ivy, folks want to know, how can they order your book?
Oh, so currently my website is down, but it is available for sale in all the bookstores in Lowell, some in Boston. You can get it at Barnes & Noble online, all your online book retailers. My website will be up hopefully in about a week, but I will put it in the chat because this afternoon there should be one page opening just for shopping if you would like to view that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, State. Thank all of you for your time. I know we had some questions in the chat, but I think we have to keep going for a bit. We may have time at the end. I'm going to hand it over to Sheila Oates, Chief Public Policy and Equity Officer at the Health Center.
Hello, everyone. Good on the chat, we want all the quotes that were here. I tried to write down.
Sheila, we're losing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My connection seems to be pretty spotty. Did it freeze?
You're
Sheila,
going in and out.
Yeah.
Sheila, why don't you pop into my office? I'm hardwired.
Do that. I'll be right over.
In the meanwhile, I noticed that there was a question that Niam asked about, is there racism within? There's definitely colorism as a, as a thing that exists in all communities. I can say as a Caribbean Black American, it's definitely very rampant in the Caribbean, but again, there's lots of history to colorism, and that's a whole nother topic that we could dive into, but thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and as far as, I think there was a comment about how are we able to unite here in Lowell around community? Any comments on that? Oh, I see Sheila as well.
There we go. The wonders of technology. So here we are improvising. So yes, I don't know if somebody was halfway through an answer for a question or something that they were saying. No, so thank you. So I just wanted to echo a lot of what has been said. Thank you so very much for being in this panel today and for all the incredible insight and experiences that you have shared. When we talked about inspiration, I heard the words persistence. I heard the word work ethic. I heard the words, being a champion of Blackness. Which is so incredible, and you're all doing that today via this alone right now. When we talked about being seen, the whole notion of wholesomeness, and Ivy, to quote you, you said showing up and not being questioned for it, right? Our full selves and what that means. So I'll take that with me. Thank you for sharing that. There were questions on allyship and what true allyship actually looks like, and not just being performative in nature, but actioning it, right? Then we moved into a conversation about actioning that, and that it is about the work. It's not so much a title. It's about recognizing the ways of the past, but doing something about it now. We have an incredible opportunity, and let's not waste even these moments where we're learning about so many experiences from our own colleagues here in the health center to put things into action. There's so much that can be said. Basilio asked a question on the chat, and I thank you all for answering. Beyond just this program today, we can do so much to really learn, to continue sharing the histories, the stories, the voices of Black Lowell, and that's not to Krista's hidden in plain sight, right? For us to continue to have these conversations each and every day in our way of doing things. And not only that, but truly integrating it and being inclusive in what it is that we do. We're in a world where the absence of those Black histories and voices is very real. It is absent in many spaces. It is absent in our school curriculums. It is absent, or rather curricula. It is absent in so many different places. So creating these spaces like what we're doing today is paramount. But we can create these spaces every single day with all of us, with getting to know each other on a much more deeper level. So again, I thank you all so very much. I thank you all for coming here and joining us for this conversation. And I will close with Amanda Gorman's quote that speaks to us all being the light, right? But we have to be, it says, for us to be the light, we have to be brave enough to be it, to shine that light. And I'm paraphrasing her quote because she says it oh so beautifully. But I just want to thank you all, our panelists here, for being that light, for continuing to shine and, continue shining because you're doing it beautifully. Thank you so very much to all of you.